Hi people! Welcome to another Training Thursday. Let me know if you are just joining us. I'll just set my hair up and get ready to chat with you guys. I love Training Thursdays. If you are joining us either here in the hub, here on YouTube, or you might be hearing it somewhere else, don't forget to subscribe wherever you happen to be so that you make sure that you don't miss on any of the trainings, the free trainings that come out for Nats, Nuts, Herbies and Praccies that want to do business differently and life differently. And they come out every Thursday. So if you're just joining us for the first time, make sure you say hello. And today I'm going to be talking about how to create an experience versus just another workshop, webinar, or retreat. Because some of my trainings come from like these moments where I get to experience something in a different way to what I have before. And many of the trainings that you guys will create for your health and well-being stuff will come out of a moment of maybe frustration, or maybe some of the ways in which you can see things are able to be done differently. And so this has come out of something like that. Let me know if you are here. I can see a couple of eyes on here, and I really like to talk to people. I don't like just running it with it. Hey, Brooke, nice to see you. And anybody else who's watching this on the replay. All right. So there's a couple of things that are creating an experience versus yet another training. And yet another training is great, but yet another training won't get the type of longevity in somebody's mind and nervous system that you existed in their life in that point in time. And creating an experience comes from all of your five senses essentially being in unison, taking an image or a snapshot in your nervous system of that experience, enough that you're going to share it with somebody. And the Maya Angelou quote comes to mind. At the end of the day, people won't remember what you said or what you did, but they will remember how you made them feel. And creating an experience is the sensation of feeling a different way. It's a really different thing to feel a certain way instead of just learning more knowledge. And I had to learn this the hard way. I used to run workshops that I stood in front of nobody, that I ran in our multimodality practice. We had a big, beautiful workshop space, and it was lovely. And I would put on once a month. And right back at the beginning, I just stood there to nobody and presented and practiced my presentation, but I didn't make it experiential at all. And I don't know if any of you guys have done this before, where you're so excited about the information you have in your head, and you are so amped about the new science that's coming out, and this game-changing possible product that looks like it could be amazing for certain conditions, and how it all filters through, and the biochemical pathways that are involved, and how that ripples out to everything, that you just want to vomit all that information up to somebody who's in front of you. And I feel the same way about business too. So sometimes I get this overwhelming sense of blah, and then this really interesting thing happens. People's eyes glaze over and they start looking elsewhere, or they kind of check out. And you're like, hold on a second, no, I can't believe I've lost you in all of this. I'm so excited about it. But you haven't given them a full experience of what that's like. There isn't anything else involved except this transaction of information. And what I see in certain workshops, trainings, even retreats that I've been on, is there's a transaction of information that hasn't been thought out at all into the nervous system of the person that's in front of you. And one of the really interesting things that I experience when I'm at any other events is that I want my nervous system to be engaged, and that's what creating an experience is all about. Hey Christine, hey Fee, hey Carla, hey Gabriella, or anybody else who's watching it on the replay. So I want you to consider, has anybody gone to Disneyland before? We got to go about 7 years ago, and honestly, I didn't want to go. I was like, I've been to Australia's Wonderland. It closed down for a reason. I'm not keen. Do we have to really go for like 2 days in a row? That doesn't sound like something that I'm interested in. Anyone else been to Disneyland? I know Marianne's been to Disneyland. So I rock up to Disneyland. I'm like, there's a line. There's a line. But as soon as you walk through, everything is an experience. And it is an experience on a whole other level to my experience of Australia's Wonderland. And there is a reason that it shut down. And so this whole experience, my sight, my smells, my sound, my nervous system was so engaged in what was happening. There was music, there was characters coming past. Every single element, every single touch point they're called, every single touch point had engaged my imagination, which is the whole point of Disneyland. And so they live it and breathe it in every single touch point that they have. That is an experience. That's an absolute experience to not even like, so where they keep the garbage, whereas, I've been to other places here in Australia and elsewhere, and you can see when they go around the corner that they're not, they get out of character, or you can see where the garbage bins are. Disneyland is not like that. Disneyland is Disneyland the whole way through. Like, there is no element that they haven't thought of that's in alignment with their theme, that's in alignment with the experience of the nervous system of the people who are there. That's what an experience is all about. And that's what makes it different to, there used to be a show on the ABC, and they used to do a pun, a bit of a comedic take on Piss Week World. And it was really like, you can't turn Disneyland into that. It's not just replicatable like that. And that's the thing about experiences. They're not replicatable. They make an imprint on somebody's nervous system in a way that is very different to just delivering more information through a transactional experience. So transactional versus transformational. So transactional is, here's all my knowledge. I'm going to take you to a place, be it on the website or be it in a workshop, or be it on a retreat, and I'm just going to give you the information. It's a really different thing to a transformation, where you have thought about that nervous system or the group of nervous systems that you have that are coming to your event, and you've thought about where they are beginning. So when they come to your event, your workshop, webinar, retreat, whatever it happens to be, they come from a certain space. So they might be overwhelmed. They might be tired. They might be energetically drained. There might be something, and you have to consider where they're at the beginning. And when you've got them where they're at and recognize where they're at, you can then take them on a journey, no matter how long your training is. It could be an hour, it could be 7 days, it could be a whole 6-month experience you're taking people on, but you need to meet them where they're at. And then you need to talk them step by step through the journey that they want to go on to get to a point where they want to be. Like, there's a point where they want to be. And you have to be able to take them all the way through and notice where the things will happen that might challenge them to get to a point where they want to be. So if they want to have double the amount of energy, you have to be able to create an experience that will have them feeling like they have double the amount of energy. Now, we do this all the time with our clients, one-on-one. They come in, we meet them where they're at. You've just got a diagnosis. You've just got these pathology results. You have this symptomology. And this is what it actually means for you. And then you get really clear on what it actually means for them. Same thing happens in any workshop, webinar, or retreat. You have to meet them where they're at, not just give them, blah, here's all the things, bye, see you later. You have to meet them where they're at. Explain to them what's going on. Explain to them in all sorts of different ways that their nervous system can have on board. Explain to them in ways of smells, Maybe you're cooking. Explain to them ways of visuals. Maybe you want to create a PowerPoint presentation. Maybe you want to show a video. Maybe there's something interesting that you can show visually. You want to get them to experience the touch or the movement of what that feels like. And so you need to get them involved in an experiential or kinesthetic activity. Now, some of you guys might have even done further studies after you have got your qualification, or you might have been an educator before. But this comes down to some of the, tenets of adult learning, the experiential learning techniques, and some other really interesting NLP techniques as well, called anchoring. But these things are ways in which you can get that person's nervous system involved in what they're learning rather than just passively taking it in. Meet them where they're at, explain what's happening, and then you take them on a journey. Now, the journey element of whatever you're creating is going to be enhanced if you read something like, and Kira's on here, if you read something like Joseph Campbell's work and The Hero's Journey. If you are anyway engaged in the idea that the story of your life follows a general story of what happens in that we see in pop culture, that we see in stories as old as the Bible and other things. And if you can take them on a journey that is going to mirror the way that they've had stories before, their whole system is going to be on the journey with you. Now, I bring up this specifically because I've seen many a retreat, and I've been on some, that don't consider where you are beginning and where you are ending in that week, in that whatever it happens to be. And if you're going to take people on a hero's journey in a week, you want to say start with where they're at, which is probably tired and fatigued and a little, I should put it on this side because you guys are seeing it this side. Tired, fatigued, wherever they are, and you want to build them up to a point. And this is the same thing that happens in The Hero's Journey, which is Joseph Campbell's work, some other work by Carl Jung and some others, take you up to a point where you think you know enough, where you think you've got what you needed from the event, but then a challenge happens. Now, the challenge happens basically in the middle or in the first third. The challenge does not happen at the end. Luke Skywalker seizes the day. We have the hero always wins, but the challenge happens somewhere around the first third to the first half. So taking people on an experience where they have to figure out what isn't working in their life, what isn't working for their health and their well-being, what is it about their condition that they've been ignoring and not doing anything about, and make them feel the feels. Now, as practitioners, we are not so keen on making people feel the feels. We're like, we want it all bright and shiny and be really positive, and they're all going to get out of this just wonderfully well. I sure was. Back in the days when I was just like verbally vomiting the newest research on people and not giving them absolutely anything else, I was all bright and shiny as well. But the second that I got really real with people, in that first third of even a consultation, let alone trainings, about where they're actually at and what they're actually missing and what could happen if they just keep doing that same stuff. If you get really real with that, they're going to feel it. That's what an experience is about. You have to be able to feel a feeling, and then you can take them out of that feeling by giving them the information that they need, giving them the tools that they need, giving them an experience of into Now, you'll notice that the didn't happen at the end of the week, or didn't happen at the end of the webinar. Didn't happen. It happens in the first third to the first half. The experience is leaving them with a feeling of being able to overcome, feeling of hope. But you have to get into the murkiness to be able to get through the challenge. So that's why I bring up the hero's journey especially. The experience that you have will take you dipping down and coming back up again. So the other thing about stories and the way that we remember things, and why storytelling is so important in the experience that you're creating for people, is because they're going to tell a story about their experience. And you want them to be able to tell a story of, a high, a low, and a high. It's the way that we remember stuff. It's the way we shared stories around fires when we were in Neanderthal days. It's the way that we share stories in our favorite love songs and ballads. It's a high, a low, and a high. Minimum. Please end on a high. Don't break people down on the last day. You want to make sure that you have something that they can go home with that gives them a sense of hope. Christine says, if you could take a pic of my mindful eating and the gut-brain connection talk for next week. First line already says, experiential. We're so in sync, Tammy. Perfect subject today. Awesome. I love that. And this is the thing. Trainings don't have to be that old school way of doing things. And although we all got trained in a similar way, we all got trained in a way that was PowerPoint presentations and something really interesting and dry, and probably had to answer a whole bunch of questions to prove that we were listening. It doesn't have to be like that anymore, and you don't have to be creating that. You don't want a transactional experience for your people. You want a transformational experience for your people, because they're going to feel a certain way, and it's going to then motivate them to change and motivate to tell other people about the story that they experienced so that other people can change and that ripple effect can happen. Don't be transactional. Unless it's totally in alignment with you, then be transactional. But I'm asking you and inviting you to lean into the idea that it could be transformational for you and for them. So, last little point on the storytelling is make sure that you are thinking about the journey that you want to take them on. So whether it is a workshop and you are doing an afternoon tea blending session, meet them where they're at. Take them to how bad has it been for you to create teas before? What are your symptoms? Hot flushes suck. Tell us all about that type of thing. And then create the good stuff on the end, right? So even the smallest of things, you're still going to create a journey and a story at the end. Lastly, this is the experiential learning technique. It's by a guy called Kolb in 1984. And if any of you have done your your diploma or your cert for adult education, then you will have experienced some of this lesson, and it might just be a nice little reminder for you. So the thing about it is, you start with a concept, like an abstract concept, a thought pattern. And you kind of do the same thing in business, but I'm sidelining. So you start with a thought pattern, and then you go and you have a experiment. So you experiment, or you plan, or you think it through, but you do something, a little something, but it's not actually the experience. Then you go through the experience of it, and then through the experience, you learn something completely different through the movement of it, that like your entire nervous system feels it. It's a very different thing to thinking about it cognitively. So you go through the experience, and then there's this other part that everybody forgets and that a lot of introverts don't like very much. It's called reflective learning. And in actual fact, it's one of the tenets of the way that we learn and we have shared knowledge throughout the millennia, is through reflective learning. Now, reflective learning is looking back in hindsight on the experience you just had and then sharing it through communication so it sinks in. And so when you're thinking about your experiences that you're creating, you can conceptualize and then experiment by teaching people. If you teach them at that level, you're going to get a certain result. And think about some of the subjects that were really dry in your qualification, and that's the type of result that you want. Then think about the practitioners who gave you either, they described an experience, the lecturers who described an experience and it stuck with you, and you're like, yeah, she had that experience, and I can put myself in that position because it was like a story of mine. So that, or they've taken you somewhere. So I remember going on our herb garden tour, and for the first time ever, scratching the bark. So I conceptualized what cinnamon was, and I was like, oh yeah, it's kind of like paper bark maybe, right? And then we planned out going to the herb garden. So in my head, I was like experimenting with the idea of what cinnamon might be like, But going through the experience of it and scratching on a cinnamon bark on this baby little tree that was at Southern Cross, and smelling it, and then like having it under my nails and feeling like the oils and oh my goodness, it was a totally different thing. Reflectively, me telling you this story and reflecting back on that experience totally engaged it. I rang my mum that night. I was like, oh my goodness, no wonder cinnamon costs so much. You got to literally take off chunks of this bark and it just doesn't fall off like I expected it to, like gum tree. So there's a whole different set of depth that you can get if you're reflective with your learning. Now, what this means for you guys is if you're running a workshop, webinar, or retreat, verbal diarrheaing onto people, then you're only covering the first two little bits. You're giving them a concept, and then you are giving them an experiment of I wonder what that would be like. When you give them experience, it embodies it into their nervous system. And when you give them reflective learning, a way to talk to the person next to them, a way to journal, a way to express with you what's been going on, express with the group. Now, again, I know that introverts don't like this, but that's how it sets into your nervous system. That's exactly how you anchor it into your system. You anchor the lesson that you had, because it's not the same one that you were thinking of having, it's the one that you actually felt. And by doing all of those, then you're going to have an experience that is going to stick with people. So that's like the hardcore, like heavy duty science of it all. But if you start to think about it that way, then you need to start to think and apply what you've thought about on that angle to what comes in the Disneyland versus Bisweek World model, right? My experience of Disneyland was different because I was able to think about what it was going to be like, not too keen. I was then able to experiment in my mind what it could be like, plan it out. The experience of it was totally 5 senses different, and it was so in alignment with the themes. Now, if you've got a theme for your workshop, webinar, retreat, conference, whatever it happens to be, and I've done a whole bunch of other trainings on, I don't know, my top 10 workshop ideas, and given you actual experiential things to do, like a gut, and showing people what surface area gut wall of an adult actually is 2 double bed sheets. And so you can see they might think it, they might notice it, but then if you've got 2 double bed sheets like next to one another and they're going, oh, that's the surface area, and then they share their experience, I didn't think that, I now think this, then it's anchored in. Then they're going to take their bloody probiotics as much as you want to give them. So same thing happens with Disneyland, for instance. Oh, and the other thing about these experiential things is they're Instagrammable. So the cool, and I know some of you don't like it, but it's really easy. We live in a day where technology and taking a picture on your camera, not only just to put it on, not only to share it with somebody next to us or tell somebody about the workshop we just went to, it then becomes shareable, and that's how you can get your name out in a really amazing free way, by creating an experience for somebody who reflectively learnt by sharing it on Instagram, and that story exchange then becomes an even bigger ripple effect. So Fiona, yeah, I love it too. So this is the thing, right? When you are creating something, you need to think about not being Pissweek World, not being not Instagrammable, not being verbal diarrhea, not being the teaching in the way that you have already and always been taught. You need to think about, what is your overarching theme? Who are you bringing in? Where are they at? What journey can you take them on? How can you make them feel a little uncomfortable to get to a high point at the end, so that they reflectively learn and you engage them in that, and then they share it with everybody that they know, so that they have the learning and the lesson in their nervous system enough that they make a change in their health and well-being. They make a change in their lifestyle that then perpetuates other people asking for that story, and then you're able to share that story. All right. Is there any questions on anything I was just sharing with you guys? Super cool to see you all here. Hey, Ash. Hey, Trina. Hey, Catherine. Awesome. Sam. Who else do we have here? Any other questions on that? So, and any specific questions that you might want to ask us as well about your particular workshops, webinars, or retreats. Now, I've got another 2 minutes, so I'm just going to extrapolate that just a tiny little bit more because I'm an oversharer. So when you consider, I read a great white paper last year from the Big Red Group, and Naomi Simpson's an Australian entrepreneur who runs an experience company, and they wrote a really well-researched white paper about the experience economy. And towards the end of it, what she was describing was not only do we have experiences about, not only do we have experiences as in we sell an experience like NatX or a retreat, like a big conference or retreat, which is a nice experience, or I don't know, flying in a helicopter. But we also started back in the day with a commodity, which is like gold and silver and things, and then they turned gold and silver into into goods. So you ended up with a piece of jewelry, and so we were selling pieces of jewelry, and that was the economy. And then we turned them into a service. So something came with the goods. So when you think about, we harvested herbs, wildcrafted herbs, then we turned herbs into, remedies, and then it came with a service of how can we teach these people and empower them with their health and well-being that comes with the remedy that goes with it. And then it becomes an experience now. So there's this progression of the economy and the progression of the way that we do business. And although we don't have a commodity per se, an experience of the way that your business is perceived by somebody is next level thinking. So you might have your services, which is one-on-one. You might have your goods, which is your remedies that help people. But what's their experience of you, and how are you leaving them feel with every touch point in your business? Not just workshops, webinars, and retreats. How are they perceiving you when they book in with you? How are they perceiving you when you reply to their emails or don't reply to their emails? How are they perceiving you with what is created on your website? How is their experience, and what are they feeling from you after you've seen them? Do you give them a follow-up email? Does it look like you care, even though you say you will? Is there an experience of caring? And I had this recently with, I was just buying goods. Actually, I got given them as a gift, and I was really excited. And it's one of our tribe, actually, because I got given a gift in front of our tribe from a friend who was actually bought them from one of our tribe. And so Emily the Purist has the Purist collection, and it was an amazing experience, not just to get something in a box, but to have a full experience of here's the things that are right for you. Here's a little note on the inside. It got here on time, checking if it got here on time. There was a whole experience that went with that. And similarly, if you have a goods or a service, which you guys do, how can you create an experience of that rather than a transactional, here you go? How can you transform that person's nervous system into a really memorable snapshot of their experience of you and your business? All right, that was just a little next level add on at the end there, but it is a really decent thing to consider. And it's one of the reasons that we go back to some of the companies that we do, or we share the company because we had an amazing experience with them. Not because we had an amazing service or goods from them. It was the experience and the customer experience that changed our way of thinking about the story that we create and how we tell it to other people. Okay, that's enough for Training Thursday today. Thank you guys for watching. If this has been helpful to you or somebody else, make sure you share it. And do share it. Take notes, share it. I want to see this ripple effect for all of our profession. If we can go pro in the transformation that we can give people, then it's going to be so much more profound and a ripple effect for so many more people. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe so you don't miss any more of these. And if you want the notes for this, very shortly they'll be over on the blog, and you can get the notes and tips for you to print out. All right, have an amazing week, people, and I will see you at our next Training Thursday. Bye.